You know, when you walk through like a bustling downtown commercial district
Or
or
even just a massive outdoor retail plaza.
yeah, exactly. You are actually surrounded by this staggering amount of invisible waste. It's flowing right over your head through the ductwork and out the exhaust vents of the very places where you work and shop and live.
Right, and it's completely silent. But it is, honestly, one of the most substantial financial and environmental drains on the modern economy.
It really is. And the mission for today's deep dive is to explore a genuinely groundbreaking solution to that massive silent problem. Specifically, we're talking about the 40% energy waste that's basically baked into commercial HVAC systems.
It's an interesting paradox, isn't it? Because we tend to focus our sustainability efforts on the things we can easily see.
Like electric vehicles on the street or solar panels on the roof.
Exactly. Yet the internal climate control networks of our commercial buildings, they represent an exponentially larger share of global energy consumption.
Which is wild to think about. So today we are looking at an in-depth profile from Awards Insider. They're covering the 2026 E+E Leader Judges Choice winner in the Software and Cloud category.
And the winner there is BrainBox AI, specifically their Train Technologies AI Lab and their AI control platform.
Yeah, and what stands out to me here isn't just, another theoretical white paper. It's a real look at how you bridge the gap between having insight into a massive systemic problem.
And actually doing something about it, deploying an autonomous mechanism to solve it in the real world.
Right. But, okay, before we get into how BrainBox AI engineered this platform, I think it's worth contextualizing that 40% figure.
Good point. Commercial HVAC systems consuming roughly 40% of all energy in a building, that isn't exactly a new phenomenon.
No, it's been that way for a while.
Right, but the reasons behind that inefficiency are, they're often misunderstood. People assume it's a hardware failure.
Wait, so it's not just like old chillers or broken boilers?
No, not usually. The physical chillers, the boilers, the air handling units, they are largely doing exactly what they are told to do. The breakdown is actually in the instructions they receive.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I always just assumed building managers left their systems running inefficiently, simply because, well, upgrading the mechanical hardware across a massive real estate portfolio is just, too expensive.
That's the common assumption. But looking at the operational data, it's fundamentally a control issue. The industry standard has relied on static schedules for decades.
Right, static schedules, which I guess works fine in a perfectly predictable vacuum.
Exactly. But commercial real estate is inherently dynamic. A static schedule is programmed to push a specific volume of conditioned air based on just the time of day or the day of the week.
It has basically zero awareness of sudden environmental shifts.
None. So if a massive conference lets out, and suddenly there are 500 people standing in the main lobby, the static schedule doesn't adapt.
Or, like, if a freak weather front rolls in at 2 a.m. and drastically drops the ambient outside temperature.
Right, the system just keeps cooling the building as if it were a standard summer night. And furthermore, it can't detect the subtle day-to-day degradation of a rooftop unit that might be operating, say, just 5 or 10% below its optimal baseline.
It reminds me of setting a car's cruise control to 65 miles per hour on the highway.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right, because if you refuse to adjust that cruise control when you hit a sudden traffic jam or when you start climbing a steep mountain pass, you are just burning fuel. You're over-revving the engine, fighting against the physical reality of the road.
You're wasting energy for absolutely no reason.
Exactly.
Huh.
But that leads to an obvious question for me. If multi-site operators have known about this inefficiency for years, why hasn't it been solved manually?
Well, it comes down to human capital, really, and the limits of scale. Imagine you are a facility manager overseeing a portfolio of 200 retail locations across 3 different climate zones.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a lot of ground to cover.
You physically cannot hire enough mechanical engineers to sit in front of control screens, monitoring the microfluctuations of weather, occupancy, and equipment health.
For every single zone, in every single building, 24 hours a day.
Exactly. The labor cost would instantly negate any energy savings you might achieve.
But the financial calculus on ignoring the problem is shifting rapidly, isn't it? It's no longer just an abstract sustainability goal to be more efficient.
Not at all. The profile actually points to regulatory frameworks like New York City's Local Law 97.
Right, which imposes strict, escalating financial penalties on buildings that exceed their emissions limits.
Exactly. So that broken cruise control method we talked about, It's transitioning from a quiet operational inefficiency into a massive, highly visible liability on the balance sheet.
And that shifting financial reality is the exact friction point where BrainBox AI enters the picture. Which brings us to the core differentiator the E+E leader judges kept returning to.
Right, their evaluation highlighted the platform's leap from passive analytics to active autonomy.
Let's dig into that distinction, because for a long time, the tech industry's answer to building management was basically just selling people a better dashboard.
Dashboards have been the gold standard for a decade. A smart analytics platform gathers a massive amount of data, identifies an inefficiency.
Like, say, a damper on the fourth floor is stuck open and wasting chilled air.
Exactly, and it flashes a red alert on a screen. But, that is still a passive process.
Right. It still requires a human operator to notice the alert, interpret the severity, log into the building's control system, and actually execute a change.
And if you're managing a massive commercial portfolio, you aren't getting one alert. You're likely getting thousands of them a day.
Yeah, alert fatigue is a very real phenomenon in facility management.
Oh, absolutely. Eventually, the human operators just start ignoring the dashboard because they are drowning in data they just don't have the manpower to act on.
So the judges awarded BrainBox AI because their AI control platform bypasses that human bottleneck entirely. It doesn't just show you the problem, it acts on it.
Right. The system issues roughly 2 million individualized HVAC commands per day across its network.
2 million.
2 million discrete, calculated actions, optimizing fan speeds, adjusting set points, modulating valves, and it does all of this without ever waiting for a human engineer to hit an approval button.
Wow.
And what's fascinating here is, in an era where corporate environmental claims are scrutinized heavily, the judges placed immense value on a system that delivers undeniable continuous action rather than just delivering more insights.
See, I have to pause here.
Yeah.
Because if I'm a building owner listening to this, a massive red flag just went up.
How so?
Well, you are talking about a system issuing 2 million autonomous commands a day across thousands of commercial properties, handing over the physical control of a multi-million-dollar skyscraper's mechanical systems to an AI that sounds like a massive liability.
I can see why you'd think that.
I mean, if it's just blindly running an algorithm and decides to shut off the heating during a Minnesota winter to save energy, you've got frozen pipes, furious tenants, and millions in damages. How does it ensure those commands are actually safe?
It's the most critical question an operator can ask, honestly, and it gets to the architectural foundation of the AI itself. The system isn't acting blindly.
Okay, so what is it doing?
It's not utilizing the type of generative or purely statistical AI we usually hear about in the news. The safety and the efficiency stem from a proprietary framework that awards insider details as physics-informed deep learning.
Physics-informed deep learning combined with neural ordinary differential equations, right?
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because neural ordinary differential equations, or neural ODs, sounds intensely academic.
It does sound like a mouthful.
Yeah, but it's actually solving the biggest flaw in traditional machine learning when it's applied to the physical world.
Right. To understand why it's so revolutionary, you really have to look at how traditional AI models operate. Most machine learning is essentially advanced pattern recognition.
You feed it a massive data set of historical temperatures and energy use, and it tries to match the current situation to a past pattern.
Exactly. It's effectively a black box.
Right.
But buildings are not digital abstractions, They're physical entities governed by the immutable laws of thermodynamics.
So traditional AI is like a driver who has memorized a map of all the past traffic jams in a city. They know where things usually go wrong based on history, but they don't necessarily know why.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Whereas physics-informed AI is like a driver who fundamentally understands the actual laws of friction, momentum, and weather.
Yes.
They know exactly how their specific car will handle on an icy road around a tight curve before they even press the accelerator. They aren't just reacting to a historical map. They understand the physical mechanics of the journey.
That analogy translates perfectly to what BrainBox AI is doing with neural ODEs. Ordinary differential equations are essentially the mathematical language of continuous change over time.
So by embedding these equations into the deep learning model, the AI maps the continuous, nonlinear flow of energy through the physical space.
Exactly. It understands exactly how heat transfers through a specific type of concrete wall. It knows how a localized temperature change in a crowded lobby will thermodynamically impact the empty hallway next to it.
And it understands the specific mechanical response profile of the aging chiller on the roof.
Yes, and because the system actually understands the physics of the building, it doesn't need to ingest years of historical data to blindly guess what to do next.
Which is why the performance metrics on this are wild. I read that this physics-based approach reduces the required learning data by a factor of 10.
A factor of 10, yes. And it cuts the model training time by up to 90%.
That's unbelievable.
And the downstream effect of that physical understanding is extreme predictive power. The platform achieves 96% predictive accuracy for zone temperatures up to 6 hours in advance.
Oh, wait, 6 hours?
Up to 6 hours, yeah. It isn't just reacting to the present, it is constantly anticipating the future state of the building.
So if it knows the afternoon sun is going to hit the massive glass facade on the west side of the building in 3 hours, it already understands how the thermal mass of the interior will absorb that heat.
Right, so it starts making micro adjustments to the cooling right now, staying ahead of the thermal curve.
That anticipation is the key to both the energy savings and the safety I asked about earlier, isn't it?
Absolutely. Because traditional static HVAC systems are entirely reactive. A room gets too hot, so the air conditioning kicks on at 100% capacity to violently force the temperature back down.
Which requires a massive spike in energy.
Exactly. But by predicting the heat load hours in advance, the AI control platform smooths out that energy curve entirely. It applies gentle, continuous optimization.
Okay, so the AI has a flawless grasp of thermodynamics, but I'm trying to figure out the computational and physical logistics here.
Meaning the installation.
Yeah. Usually when you introduce a highly advanced predictive smart technology into a 40-year-old commercial building, the deployment reality is an absolute nightmare.
Oh, for sure.
You're talking about tearing open walls, ripping out legacy sensors, and disrupting tenants for months.
And if that were the case here, this technology would never scale beyond a few flagship smart buildings. But the judges emphasize that the single most crucial selling point of the platform is that it requires absolutely zero rip and replace.
Zero. So there is no new mechanical hardware to install.
None. And there is no tenant disruption.
It just utilizes the existing infrastructure. The profile mentions it deploys as a cloud-based edge device that connects via BACnet IP.
Right. And for those who don't know, BACnet is basically the universal communication protocol for building automation systems.
It's the language all these different proprietary thermostats and chillers use to talk to each other.
Exactly. So by using that standard protocol, the edge device simply plugs into the existing network and layers its intelligence over whatever legacy equipment is already sitting in the basement or on the roof.
But the data scale still seems like a bottleneck to me. To run this predictive physics model, the platform conducts over 280 full control assessments per building every single day.
It's a massive amount of data.
Yeah, it's processing 134 gigabytes of data per minute globally and retraining around 250 models daily.
It is.
To process 134 gigabytes of data a minute locally, you would typically need a heavy-duty server rack sitting in every single building's janitor closet, which completely defeats the premise of a cheap, seamless integration.
You're right, but they solved that by utilizing a hybrid edge-to-cloud architecture.
Oh, I see.
The physical device installed at the edge inside the building acts primarily as a highly secure gateway. It translates the building's localized data and streams it up to the cloud.
So all of the computational heavy lifting, the deep learning, the predictive modeling, and the retraining of the neural ODEs, that all happens within BrainBox AI's massive cloud infrastructure.
Exactly. And then the resulting optimized commands are sent back down through the edge gateway directly to the HVAC controllers.
So the building owner gets the benefit of supercomputer-level processing power without actually having to buy, power, or maintain a supercomputer on-site.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that's exactly how you achieve the massive global reach noted in the profile. I mean, it has been recognized as a time-best invention and is currently deployed across more than 14,000 commercial buildings on 5 continents.
14,000 buildings, that's incredible.
You do not hit 14,000 buildings worldwide if your sales cycle requires convincing a property owner to undertake a massive capital expenditure project.
Definitely not.
The judges pointed out that this solution is engineered for the world as it actually exists. Building operators have strict capital budgets, tight timelines, and legacy equipment they simply cannot afford to replace.
So this technology aligns immediately with their near-term operational realities while simultaneously advancing their long-term decarbonization targets.
Exactly.
Well, the underlying tech is brilliant, and the installation is essentially frictionless, but we need to look at the receipts.
The real-world
Yeah.
results.
What happens to the bottom line when you deploy a physics-informed AI across a massive, highly varied real estate portfolio? The case studies in the Awards Insider piece are genuinely compelling because they test the platform in very different physical environments.
Dollar Tree is perhaps the most illustrative example of how this works at scale with constrained resources.
Right, because they manage a massive footprint of relatively small retail spaces, often with thin margins and limited on-site technical staff.
Exactly. So BrainBox AI deployed the platform across 600 Dollar Tree stores in 18 states, and consistent with the model we discussed, this required zero major capital investment.
And within 2 months, 400 of those sites were running fully autonomously.
And the financial return is staggering. Over just the first year, Dollar Tree saved $1,028,159 in energy costs.
More than $1 million retained simply by allowing the AI to optimize the existing thermostats and rooftop units. That is huge.
It is, and on the environmental front, they avoided more than 5,600 metric tons of CO2 equivalent emissions.
The results were so conclusive that they are now expanding the autonomous program to an additional 2,000 stores.
The E+E leader judges were notably impressed by that specific use case. I mean, one judge's commentary essentially read, "Wow, the savings in energy and dollars to Dollar Tree tells the story of BrainBox, over $1 million in savings, and another large-scale success at Camabees in New York."
That's amazing.
The judge went on to say, "Upon further reading, I learned that BrainBox has been deployed in over 14,000 commercial buildings. Hearty congratulations." It's a level of unvarnished enthusiasm you rarely see in technical award evaluations.
But it's justified when you look at the breadth of the application. Because beyond standard retail spaces, you have Amazon utilizing the platform for their grocery fulfillment centers.
Which is a totally different beast. Grocery fulfillment centers are arguably some of the most complex HVAC environments in the commercial sector.
Right, because you are dealing with intense, localized refrigeration needs.
Exactly. Refrigeration immediately adjacent to areas that require ambient heating for workers, alongside massive bay doors that are constantly opening and closing, disrupting the thermal envelope.
And Amazon ran initial pilots across 3 of these centers and saw nearly 15% energy reductions, which is massive for an industrial facility.
It actually doubled Amazon's initial projections for the pilot, and they are now scaling the AI across more than 30 sites to help meet their internal climate pledge commitment.
So what does this all mean? When you aggregate the data across all these varying deployments, retail, grocery logistics, large urban real estate portfolios like Camabees, the baseline averages for the AI control platform paint a very clear picture of its capabilities.
Right. We are looking at up to a 25% reduction in overall HVAC energy costs and up to a 40% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions.
But there are 2 other statistics in the platform averages that I think are even more important for a facility manager's day-to-day life.
Oh, the equipment life and the comfort levels.
Exactly. The first is that the platform extends the life of mechanical equipment by up to 50%.
Which, when you think about the mechanism we discussed earlier, makes perfect sense.
Yeah. A rooftop chiller operating on a static schedule, essentially red lines. It kicks on at 100% capacity, runs until it forces the temperature down, and shuts off completely.
That constant violent start-stop cycle degrades mechanical parts incredibly fast.
But the AI applies gentle, continuous micro-adjustments, keeping the equipment running at a low, steady state. It's the difference between slamming on the brakes at every stoplight versus coasting smoothly through traffic.
And the second metric is the improvement in thermal comfort by up to 60%.
That's the one that blew my mind. Historically, energy efficiency and human comfort in commercial buildings have been treated as a zero-sum game.
Right. If a building manager needed to cut energy costs, they broadened the acceptable temperature set points. Tenants would be shivering in their offices during the winter or sweating through the summer just to save the building a few dollars.
The thermostat has always been a battleground. You either sacrificed comfort for efficiency, or you sacrificed your budget to keep people happy.
But because the AI understands the thermodynamic flow of the space and is proactively maintaining stability rather than violently reacting to hot and cold swings, it fundamentally stabilizes the human environment.
You achieve a 25% drop in the energy bill, while simultaneously making the occupants 60% more comfortable. They are no longer mutually exclusive trade-offs.
Synthesizing everything we've analyzed from this profile today, BrainBox AI really demonstrates a vital principle for the future of the built environment. Achieving profound decarbonization and massive energy efficiency does not always necessitate tearing out our legacy infrastructure and starting from zero with massive capital expenditures.
Sometimes, the most effective solution is simply giving that existing mechanical infrastructure a physics-informed brain capable of observing, predicting, and acting on its own.
For anyone managing a real estate portfolio, tracking the evolution of climate tech, or just curious about how artificial intelligence is moving beyond generating text and actually taking physical control of the concrete and steel world around us, this platform represents a tangible blueprint.
We are watching the messy, human bottlenecked world of passive dashboards give way to the efficiency of active autonomy.
It fundamentally rewrites the operational physics of commercial real estate.
It really does. Which leaves me with a lingering question to ponder. If a physics-informed AI can understand the complex thermodynamics of a skyscraper well enough to predict its internal temperature with 96% accuracy 6 hours into the future, what other massive, invisible inefficiencies in our physical infrastructure are just waiting for an autonomous brain to finally take the wheel? If you have questions about being a part of future segments or other partnership opportunities, reach out to a member of our team today. Links are located in the body of the session's description.